Hi everyone, I'm Lottie.
I'm Sam.
And I'm David.
And we're Shot Glass Media. And in this week's podcast, we are discussing our favourite directors, of which there are just absolutely so many to choose from. Guys, where do we start on this?
So we let you take the reins since you're the director of Shot Glass Media.
I know, but there's directors and then there's absolutely epic directors, aren't there? So, you know, so many different types of films, different people crop up. And I think as well with directors, it can change. Like you can follow someone for a while and then you get into someone else's work. It's quite hard, isn't it? Just to sort of pick one that stands out.
Yeah, exactly. When we came up with this idea to talk about our favourite directors, it took a while to go, actually, who do I choose? Like, you could choose 20 or so that you could talk about. Like I said, when I was younger, there was a certain director, and then at college, you seem to like this other director, and then the last 10 years, it's been another particular one. It really just varied, doesn't it? So it's quite tricky.
Yeah, I kind of have phases, especially when I was in uni and doing film studies. I was like, I'm really into this director, so I want to write all my essays on him. And then I'd watch all these new films. I'm like, okay, I want to write my dissertation on him now. Then later on, I'm like, oh no, I want to do this guy now. It's spoiled for choice, really, aren't we?
It's funny, isn't it, though? Because you've just said guys, and there aren't really any mega female directors, are there?
I think there's a lot more now. You got like Sofia Coppola, Lynn Ramsey, Catherine Bigelow. A lot of them are very much indie, lesser known directors. You don't see a lot of them in doing blockbusters, I guess.
Patty Jenkins has done Wonder Woman films, and Marvel have got a few women directors doing some of their upcoming Phase 4 films.
So many to choose from. So Sam, do you want to kick us off? Do you want to reveal who? I know it's hard to choose, but if you could only pick one, which is the subject for the podcast, then who would it be and why?
I've got to go for Quentin Tarantino. There's a lot of reasons. I think my biggest reason is that I find his films there's like it's such a weird one because I think he's quite a controversial director, but every time I watch a film, I'm always expecting something different because he's a big genre filmmaker. He's a big cinephile himself, where he'll be like, okay, I want to make a western, or now I want to make a samurai movie or a gangster movie, blah blah blah. So there's something new to his films every single time, while still kind of having that same Tarantino format, the violence, the boot shots, Samuel Jackson being in nearly every film.
Yeah,
all that.
He's definitely got a style, hasn't he?
Yeah, but it's good because he uses different genres, and I like that. Kill Bill and Django Unchained, they're both similar, but at the same time, they're so totally different because one's a western, one's a samurai film.
David, are you a fan of Tarantino?
Yes and no. Kind of used to be, his earlier stuff, but the last few years I've been not that bothered of going to the cinema to see them. Like saw Kill Bills, what was the other ones back then? Inglourious Bastards and Django. Yeah, but the last few I don't think I've seen. But yeah, it's similar to what Sam's saying. He's got his own style, but I think some of it is quite predictable. So that's why I think I'm just not so bothered, especially the fact that he's very strict. He doesn't like using a composer or just have some radio music. He doesn't want the isn't it a reason that he doesn't want a composer to put their touch on it? He wants it all to be his.
Yeah, I think didn't he use I can't remember his name. I can't pronounce his name. The Italian Western Ennio Morricone or something.
Yeah,
he won an Academy Award, I think, for Hateful Eight. I think that's the only score I think he's actually done.
Didn't he have to go? Didn't he meet him numerous times to beg him to come out of retirement and do it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that was a good score. That
It's interesting, isn't it, that he, I guess, doesn't use the score? Because if you think of other directors, certainly the one I'm going to talk about, score is an absolutely massive thing and a massive part of the film and part of this, the storytelling and the emotions that go in there. So it's quite interesting, really, isn't it? If you think about it, that actually score's not a big part of his films in that sense. It's more about the visual side rather than the audio.
I think that's interesting though, because once upon a time in Hollywood, there's no score; it's just music from the radio. But I quite like that because it it immerses yourself into the world. You know, when they're driving around with the radio on, you can hear all the adverts and stuff, and you've got songs from that era. Obviously, sometimes a score is needed, I think, to convey certain emotions and such. But I think music's quite good at that. I think he's good at it because it does make me feel like I'm part of that world.
Yes, Scorsese is another one. He's just got a really good ear for choosing the music, music of that time to fit with the film he's doing. Like I just recently in the Irishman and Goodfellas as well, and Casino, just using music from that period as well as having a score.
So David, then, who's your favourite director and why?
I'd say from the last 10 years, I'd say it'd be Christopher Nolan. He's like it's sort of the only director in that time. Okay, no matter what he does, I'll go to the cinema and see it again on the biggest format. He shoots more and more IMAX, so I'll travel wherever's got there's only a few proper IMAXs in the country, so actually there is one quite local to here, so it's not so bad. But yeah, I'll go to cinema no matter what it is, no matter how it's reviewed by people. And why Nolan? I think there's there seems to be an extra level of intelligence in his movies. Even though not just big summer blockbusters, there's extra levels to it. It's artistic with the spectacle. For those who've not sure he did all the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, Interstellar, Dunkirk, and Tenet is due to come out in July. At the moment, it's not changed yet. I actually saw the 5-minute prologue to that a few months ago at IMAX, and that was incredible. So that was almost better than the film I was actually watching. Went to see it with. Nolan. What about Nolan? Like, one of the quirks that he does that's always interested me is he likes messing around with time. Like Memento, the main character.
That's complicated to watch, though. I must admit, that's quite a complex film.
Yeah, because he has a 15-minute short-term memory, so he's got to keep writing notes or tattoos. So the audience piece the story together, kind of as he discovers things. What else? Inception is just dreams in dreams in dreams in dreams, and they're all running at different speeds. Interstellar, I think that's my favourite. The only one is space, time travel, black holes. Like one particular scene, a few of them go down to the planet's surface. So 1 hour on the planet's surface is 7 years for the spaceship orbiting the planet, and they think they're going to be about half an hour. Things don't go wrong. It takes them a few hours, and they're like 20, 25, 26 years or whatever. They've been actually away. It's the other guys on the ship. So it's interesting how time is stretched. For them, they've gone for a few weeks, but when they go back to Earth, they've been gone for hundreds of years.
It's interesting you should say that, David, because I remember writing an essay on Dunkirk and time, because Dunkirk, while it's a war film, it's nothing special. It's very much one of his more, relaxed kind of films. But even then, time's used so much in that, all the different stories are taking place at different times. As you can always hear this little tick in the background and stuff, and people are checking their watches. It is still a big theme in that as well, which is good.
Yes, the evacuation of 300,000 soldiers, but 3 storylines. One story is told over the course of a week, one is told over the course of a day, and one course of an hour, and they all kind of cross over and eventually all join up at the end. But interesting, feel like you're saying, if you were watching that all linear, it'd be no way as interesting or as good, would it? It's kind of like, you could say that of Pulp Fiction and any other Tarantino films, or even Memento. If you watched it just in the linear chronologically, then it's just not as interesting.
I do like his films. I think they are quite heavy, though. You've got to kind of be up for one of his films and in the mood for it, I would say, because they're not easy to watch. It's not something you can kind of slightly zone out of and then zone back in, and you're still very much within the story and know what's going on. You have to really stay quite focused and attentive to what's unfolding and happening, especially with the use of time, because if you miss one bit, you're kind of missing that chink in the chain, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's those few I just mentioned. It's the more you watch them, the more you appreciate it, because you're picking up things you didn't notice before. The first time I saw Interstellar at the cinema, I didn't think it was that great. I was really kind of confused and didn't get it, and then watching it a second and third time, really appreciate it more, and I think it's now a favourite one of his.
Cool.
What about you then, Lottie? Who's your favourite filmmaker?
Well, I've got to go with the household name, really. I guess Hollywood classic as it is. Steven Spielberg. I think he's just, he's a mega director. He's probably the most well known. Well, he's got to be the most well known. I think everyone knows who Spielberg is, or has at least watched one of his films over the years. And I think for me, I guess his films hold a special place because it is that nostalgia. Growing up in the 90s, that's when so many of his big kind of blockbuster films came out. He's got Jurassic Park, E.T., Indiana Jones. And, I grew up with all of those films. And, a lot of his stories center around family and adventure. And you just kind of ordinary people, I guess, in these extraordinary circumstances. So you feel like you can really connect with his films because you've got a sense of, it could be you in one of those films with this unfolding story. And, it kind of follows that kind of classic linear style, I guess, with his. It's just good, it's classic storytelling techniques, really. I mean, he's, everyone knows when they've watched a classic Spielberg film. I think one of his big trademarks is that it's kind of dubbed the Spielberg face. So it's that track or dolly zoom in. So it's an extreme close up of one of the characters, and they're generally looking off screen and reacting to something that they're seeing. And obviously the audience is reacting to the emotions that they're seeing in the character. And then obviously it reveals what they're looking at. You see it a lot in, Indiana Jones, Jaws, Jurassic Park, Color Purple. It's in so many of his films, I think, and it's a very simple technique. He was sort of the first to use it, and I guess show how effective that kind of emotional storytelling technique can be part of the film.
The one that came into my head was Jaws, when he's on the beach, and it is like a proper zoom though. It feels like Stanley Kubrick's doing it, and it's like and he obviously he looks out into the ocean. It's that little boy, isn't it, with the shark? Yeah,
I'm glad you've said Spielberg. He's definitely in the top 3, top 5 of mine if I had to list that many, and for same reasons. The magical and the nostalgia, and like just growing up with those. Yeah, I remember Jurassic Park, maybe the first one I saw at the cinema.
I saw that at the cinema and it just blew me away. I remember going with a friend and he was really scared. He spent half of the film cowering under his mum's jumper, and I was just on the edge of my seat like, yeah, I'm loving it, dinosaurs. It was great fun.
I think it was the first film I went to see twice at the cinema.
Yeah, I mean, Jurassic Park is probably one of those films that's certainly, it's one of my favorites of his, and I probably watch that once a year maybe, which for an older film says something. And I think the amazing thing about that film, if you've watched any of the behind the scenes on it, is just the 3D and the animation that was done in that film was just so far ahead of its time. And even watching it now, it feels dated in other senses, but not necessarily through the animation side, which is incredible, really.
Yeah, it still looks better than some modern films. That's always say to other people, like the T-Rex paddock scene, like that CG is a lot better than some other films, and it's 25 years old.
Yeah, I'm much more of a fan of his older stuff than his newer stuff. So I feel he's maybe sold out a bit now. But like in his prime, he was, he was pretty masterful.
Yeah, he was the number one for that period, wasn't he? But yeah, I kind of agree. The last 10 years or so, it's just a bit meh.
It's just a bit schlocky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Ready Player One and all that.
That's why I think Nolan's taken over for me in that time. Yeah.
He produces a lot, doesn't he, now, and sort of sits on a lot of films as an exec. So I think he oversees quite a lot of stuff rather than directing quite as much these days.
I think the next one he's doing is a remake of West Side Story.
Yeah, musical, yeah.
There's Warhorse though that he did, which
I
was
love
filmed
Warhorse.
in 2011,
Mhm.
and I think that was a really, really good film. Really enjoyed that, and that's obviously within the last sort of 10 years, isn't it? Just
Yeah, I'd say actually that's one of my favourites by him, and I just totally forgot about it. But it is a brilliant film. That
But if it's similar thing what we were just saying about trademarks and quirks, it's the key thing is it's similar with a Nolan as well. It's always working with the same crew, whether it's cinematographer, composer, writers to an extent, to having that consistency of, Christopher Nolan always has Hans Zimmer, as far as I can remember. He kind of switches between the same 2D different cinematographers, same production designers. I think it's been Spielberg's the same, isn't it? It's always been the same. Well, pretty much the same. Yamius Kaminski's always done every film for the last 20 years. John Williams, every film pretty much, 95%.
Well, I think it gives it that. I mean, that's the thing with directors. If they're using the same teams, it gives it that their kind of trademark stamp, doesn't it? Because it's, it can't just be one person. As we know with filmmaking, it's a huge team effort. It's getting everyone in there and all of their individual skills and coming together for that kind of winning combination. What about Tarantino then, Sam? Does he reuse a lot of the same team, or is he a bit more rogue?
I don't know. I think I think his use of actors is he uses a lot of the same actors. Obviously, as I said, Samuel Jackson, Leo, and Brad have been in a couple of his films now. Harvey Keitel, Kurt Russell, a fair few. In terms of his style, though, I mean, he uses a lot of those boot shots where the camera's in the boot and you open up the boot and you can see three characters looking down, as if there's someone in the boot and they're looking up. That's quite an iconic one. He's obviously got the feet shot as well. Everyone kind of takes the mick out of him because he's always filming feet and stuff. And I think it's just become a joke with him now, where he's like, "Oh, I'll keep doing it."
You've got to get it in every film.
Yeah. And then obviously, he's got his violence and his swearing, but I think he's known for being the king of dialogue, because his dialogue is so interesting and it gives a lot to the characters that a lot of films don't. And you've got a lot of very long, tense scenes. There's the scene in Reservoir Dogs with the tab, and then you've got the Inglourious Bastard scene where Michael Fassbender's dressed up as a Nazi and he's trying to infiltrate them, and he's sat around that table and playing that game. And there's so many long scenes like that, and the tension is insane. And it normally just comes from the dialogue and how the characters look at each other and act. And there's so many. I think he's got at least one of those scenes in every single film, and they always pay off just in the right way. It's really satisfying.
He writes as well as directs, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he might have co-wrote. I think he co-wrote Death Proof, sorry, with someone else. But mostly, he has wrote every single one of them. And I think he does a lot of the cinematography. Not all of it. I think he just helps out now and again where needs to be. But and editing as well. But I think he's got a lot more control over it.
Yeah, he seems like one of those directors, doesn't he? That he's very much, he likes to be the center of it all.
The auteur, that's what they call him, the auteur.
Well, that brings me on to a bit what I don't like he likes to just pop up in a cameo. That really just annoys me and takes me out of it. I know in Reservoir Dogs he's one of the main characters at the start, and Pulp Fiction that seems to work, but anything else just oh, here he is. It's like in a Marvel film.
Hitchcock used to do that, didn't he? So I guess he's sort of copied it from him.
Yeah. I suppose the thing with Hitchcock, though, is he never probably acted. He was just kind of in the shot, whereas Tarantino's like, you know what? I'm going to do a full scene in an Australian accent I can't do.
Yeah, not subtle at all. Just, right in your face. This is my film and I'm going to have this few minutes in it.
Yeah, it definitely comes across as one of those directors, I think, that is all consuming in a sense. He kind of loves himself, and that's that. I guess it's because he's only making so many films as well. Is that right?
He's got one more left, allegedly.
But I guess a good segue, David, from yours, talking about partnerships and scores and things like that, and working with the same team is, the John Williams and Steven Spielberg partnership. And, I think they've worked together on every single film apart from Colour Purple. I think that's right. And they complement each other so well. I think it's like a match made in heaven. I mean, if you think about Jaws, and that film as well did put Spielberg on the map. I mean, if you think about the Jaws motif, the da 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 da. I mean, it's, you know, you go swimming in the sea, you end up doing that through a snorkel. Do you not find? Well, I do. Might just be me.
You see that a lot in like lots of different TV and media and stuff where they use that trope. You know, they might change up the rhythm of how it, you know, you know, but that's so iconic, that music sting, isn't it?
It is. That film, I mean, Jaws, you know, it created the, you know, what is now known as the, you know, the summer blockbuster film. That was where it all started, really, with that film. And you know, the relationship has gone on, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's a great partnership.
Yeah, it's Indiana Jones, E.T., Jurassic Park. They really, you know, people recognise those. If any part of that music played, aren't they? Those themes, they really stand out. People can name them. It's iconic, as you say. Yeah.
Even like Catch Me If You Can, like that's not very blockbustery, but that is a really iconic tune as well. That's used quite a bit, you know, for just a simple kind of like, you know, this crime drama. That tune always sticks with me.
Like jazzy, isn't it? From what I remember.
Yeah, and it just made it. You know, I mean, obviously it's Spielberg, so it's not. You expect him to make these big blockbusters, these very like franchisey, quite, you know, family-driven films. When you get something quite, you know, dramatic and a bit more serious, he still manages to have a really iconic theme tune for that.
Yeah, if you go the other way, what I always remember in a Saving Private Ryan, like the opening 20 minutes, the other way around, no music, just all sound effects of what the characters are hearing and seeing, what's going on the Omaha beach.
It's not easy watching. It's like Schindler's List, you know. I guess with Spielberg, he sort of has picked a few genres. I guess unlike Tarantino, that's kind of done a bit of everything, I think most of his films have kind of fallen into, you know, either the historical, the sci-fi, or the adventure films generally. I mean, you know, give or take.
It's an interesting mix, though, isn't it? You know, going from family films to doing these very heavy war films and stuff, drama.
Yes, I think that gets us on to the final bit of like, for each director, what would be our kind of desert island 3 films for that particular director be? You know, if you could only take 3 films on your laptop or however you want to watch it, what would it be? So, Sam, Tarantino, what 3 would you take?
I'd bring Django Unchained because that was like the first proper one that I fell in love with. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. It's one of my favorite films of all time. I'd bring that, and I'd bring Inglourious Bastards because I think that one's just it's wacky. It's actually quite serious in places as well, and I love what they do with, you know, the whole changing history and stuff. And then that follows in quite nicely to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I also really like. And it's probably one of my new favourites by him. It was very different for him as well. And it did something similar to Inglourious Bastards, which won't spoil, but it's fantastic. It's a really good movie, that. So
I really enjoyed that as well. I must admit, it was, I don't know, I think seeing Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt alongside each other, I think worked really well because they're 2 really big actors, aren't they? And you think, how's that going to play out? But both of the characters were big in themselves, just in different ways.
How about you, Lottie? Which 3 would you take from Spielberg?
Well, I think I'd have to go back to some of his older stuff, naturally. I mean, Jaws is probably one of my all-time favourite films. I think, you know, it's a film from the 70s. The shark looks totally unrealistic in a lot of scenes. But I think the drama and, you know, it's just one of those films that resonates and sticks with anyone. And you watch it and you're terrified of the sea going in the water again. And it's kind of just made not everyone scared of sharks, but I guess the unknown. So I remember watching that when I was I can't remember how old I was, probably, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something. And I just, yeah, it blew me away. I've loved it ever since. So that would have to be definitely on there. Jurassic Park as well, again, from the nostalgia point of view. First film that I saw at the cinema. And then it's got to be the Indiana Jones trilogy, probably Raiders if I had to pick one of them. I think the original was the best one out of the three. Although, I don't know, it just depends. But, and that, funnily enough, I remember watching that film and thinking, I really want to be, because it was Jurassic Park as well, of course, playing on the same time. I was like, oh, I really want to be an archaeologist. And then I remember my dad taking me somewhere where there were archaeologists working. I was like, what are they doing? They were kind of scratching away at the surface really, really slowly somewhere. And then he was like, oh, they're archaeologists. And I was like, nah, it's not for me. So I think it was obviously clearly the adventure side of those films that captured my imagination as a child, and they'd stick with you. So yeah, it would have to be those three. What, David, what would you take then? Your desert island, what three films would keep you going?
I think no particular order. I'd say as Batman's always been my favourite comic book superhero film, and the best one I think is the Dark Knight. So I'll definitely take that. I've always loved sci-fi, so Interstellar would be of that, and war films have always been some strange obsession with. So Dunkirk. So it'd be Dark Knight, Interstellar, and Dunkirk.
We could all do swapsies if we were on the same island.
It's like, okay, well, if it was Spielberg, I'd probably go. I'd go Last Crusade was my Indiana Jones pick. I really like that one. I'd then probably go Warhorse, and then Catch Me If You Can. Those I think would be my top three for him. And then if it was Nolan, it would be The Dark Knight. It would be Memento. Yeah, Memento, and then I don't know. I like Insomnia, but I'm going to go Dunkirk. So Dunkirk, Memento, and Dark Knight. Yeah. What are you, Lottie?
Tarantino. I did really like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as a newer one, so that would go on there. Django, so similar to you. I think that was a really well told story. Probably. I don't know. I think I might have to go for Pulp Fiction, all-time classic, isn't it? And then Christopher Nolan. Don't know a huge amount of his films. Obviously, I love The Dark Knight. Grew up as a massive Batman fan when I was little, so that would definitely be on there. Interstellar I liked because I didn't understand it really. Initially, and I did watch that one again, like you said, David. So I think that because it was complex, and Memento, I think, is a really nice play on the time difference, and again, complicated, but a unique sort of film. So it'd probably have to be those three for me.
Cool, yeah. For me, Tarantino, I'd say, Pulp Fiction, definitely. Jackie Brown. I try hard to think of the third one. I haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but from what everyone says, especially Sam, it should be on there, but I'm not sure. So if the third one would either be, I would flip a coin between Django Unchained and Inglourious Basterds. Yeah, so Spielberg, definitely Jurassic Park. Again, which Indiana Jones? I think Raiders, be Raiders, and a third Spielberg one. I don't know, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind always drew me in and got not emotional. There's something could really resonate with that film. I think Close Encounters would be the one I'd take if we're allowed to take these extra discs to our island. It'd be Close Encounters, Raiders, and Jurassic Park, just to be a bit different.
So three very different directors, lots of different films, some nostalgia, some historical, some interesting styles, all very different. I think, if we all ended up on a desert island together, I think we'd definitely have enough films between us to keep us going, don't you?
Indeed.
Yeah, let's do this again sometime. But yeah, pick some other directors and see what that combination might be.
Thanks for tuning in. They're 3 of our top directors. The list is endless. There are really too many to pick from, but we had to pick 3 and our top 3 films, so we managed to do it. So thanks for listening, and tune in to find out more about some of our other podcasts and other film and movie trivia that we'll chat about. Speak to you soon.